I had no idea you were keeping so much to yourself. Besides, we're a married couple, there's no reason I shouldn't use our shared money. It's even worse to hide it while looking down on me. My husband and mother-in-law kept talking like this, and I felt disgusted. I decided it was time to show them the reality. By the way, have you checked the name on the bank account? My name is Lillian, and I'm 42 years old. I've been married for 17 years, and before that, I worked at a company. After getting married, I quit my job and started working part-time at a local supermarket. I met my husband Easton at work, and back then, I thought he was just a regular, kind guy. That changed about 6 months after we got married. One day while I was preparing dinner, my mother-in-law suddenly showed up at our house without any warning. My husband hadn't come home from work yet, so I figured it might be something urgent and let her in. As soon as she saw the living room, she sighed loudly. "Lillian, you've been sitting around watching TV until now. My son Easton is still working hard at his job. Don't you feel bad?" I did have the TV on, but I had just finished preparing dinner in the kitchen. She might think I'm being lazy, but I had already done my housework in the morning and just got back from shopping after my part-time job. Feeling annoyed but thinking I had done my part, I apologized to my mother-in-law. She snorted, walked into the kitchen, and started criticizing the dinner I made. "Oh dear, is this all we have for dinner today? Poor Easton, working so hard. I had planned to serve curry and salad today, with the salad in the fridge. How could you let Easton eat such a simple meal? I wonder what you learned at home." Insulted, not just about me but also about my parents, I finally snapped and asked a bit harshly, "Didn't you need something?" My mother-in-law widened her eyes. "Oh my, don't get so mad just because I looked at the dinner." She pouted and sat heavily on the sofa to watch TV. "What do you need?" "It's not what do you need. Don't you think you should offer something to your mother-in-law who kindly visited?" she said. "You're so inconsiderate, not even serving tea. Poor Easton." She kept repeating "poor Easton," so I served her tea, but she complained about everything, even saying the tea was cheap. Back then, I was young and avoided arguing with my husband's mother, thinking I should be considerate to her. However, she took advantage of that. Neither my husband nor I said anything, but my mother-in-law began visiting our home frequently. She constantly complained that I wasn't cleaning properly, that I was lazy, and that I wasn't disciplining myself enough. After being criticized so much, I was at my wit's end, so I decided to talk to my husband about it. "Hey, could you ask your mom to cut down on how often she comes over?" "Why, is it really that much of a bother when mom visits?" "You've seen it, haven't you? No matter how much I clean or cook, your mom keeps complaining about me." "Well, that's because mom wants you, Lillian, to work harder, so she's tough on you. I'm doing my best, but when she comes over without notice, I can't even prepare dinner properly. If you're bothered, you should tell her yourself. But remember, mom cares about us too." My husband was like this. He never really worried about what I was saying. No matter how much effort I put into cleaning or learning to cook better, my mother-in-law would always nitpick and never praise me. One time, she brought over some vegetables that were clearly about to go bad, so I used them for dinner. Then she sighed loudly, acting upset that I would serve such withered vegetables to my husband and his mother. I finally realized that she just wanted to bully me as her daughter-in-law. Fed up with the constant criticism, I decided to talk to my father-in-law. I told him it was hard to prepare meals for my mother-in-law and that her frequent unannounced visits were becoming a problem. He seemed surprised and apologized politely. "I thought she was going out to dinner with friends. I didn't realize she was bothering you, Lillian. I'm sorry." "No, it's not your fault," I replied. "She's often out and about, so I've been giving her money for meals, but she hasn't been using it, has she?" "Unfortunately, no," I said. My father-in-law apologized to me again and again during our conversation. He promised to talk to my mother-in-law firmly. I decided not to push the issue further, thinking his promise was enough. I thought I could finally relax, but then I got a phone call from my mother-in-law filled with accusations. "Hello, how dare you tell my husband about me like that?" "What? I didn't. I've been going out of my way to check on you, and this is how you repay my kindness? With ingratitude?" "That's not true. I'm not being ungrateful. You're the one who should apologize." "How dare you? I'm educating you in the areas where your upbringing was lacking. You should be thankful." "I understand what you're saying, but it's inconvenient when you show up without notice. Should a mother need to make an appointment to visit her own son's house? How brazen you are as a daughter-in-law. You should adapt to your husband's family's rules." No matter what I said, she just got angrier and started yelling so loudly that I couldn't even understand her. Then she hung up. I suspected she called me when my father-in-law wasn't around, so I hesitated to talk to him again, fearing it would just make things worse. Even though she visited slightly less often, my mother-in-law still came to our home. My husband was in good spirits, complaining about work to her and getting her sympathy, so it didn't seem like he would ask her to stop visiting anytime soon. Seeing his attitude, my mother-in-law became even more cheerful, and they both started blaming me. "Lillian, you don't show enough respect to Mom." "That's right, Easton, tell her more. I'm only getting a small allowance even though I'm the one earning the money." "That's terrible. What a devil of a wife you have." They continued to eat the meals I prepared while complaining about them, shouting and laughing in the living room I had cleaned. When I was washing the dishes, my husband would say, "At least prepare the bath," expecting me to get everything ready, from the towels to his pajamas. My mother-in-law didn't correct him but instead took his side, saying, "Poor thing, having such an inconsiderate wife." I consulted with my father-in-law again, and he apologized profusely, but nothing changed. My mother-in-law's behavior continued, and I was exhausted. One day, I noticed that a necklace my own mother had handed down to me was missing. When I asked my husband about it, he coldly dismissed me, saying, "You probably lost it because of your own carelessness." But I knew it was supposed to be in my drawer. The truth finally came out when my mother-in-law visited our home again during dinner. "Mother-in-law, that necklace," I started to say. "Oh dear, how disgraceful to desire something someone else is wearing," she interrupted. The necklace she was wearing was undoubtedly the one I lost. It had a unique, unusual design with a peculiar ornament. There was no way I could mistake it. And there she was, wearing it right in front of me. "Please, give it back," I demanded. "How awful! Are you accusing me of stealing from you? Not only desiring someone else's belongings but also calling them a criminal. This really shows your poor upbringing," she sneered, wearing a triumphant smile. Unable to hold back any longer, I reached for the necklace. My mother-in-law purposefully screamed, and just then, my husband, who had come home earlier than usual, opened the front door. Seeing me, he pushed me hard. I crashed into the wall and crouched down, stunned. My husband, standing by my mother-in-law's side, started accusing me. "Just like Mom said, you've been bullying her while I'm not here, haven't you?" "That's right, Easton. Lillian is really terrible. I just wanted to get along." "No, listen. The necklace your mother is wearing is the one I said I lost," I pleaded. "I don't want to hear any excuses. Mom, let's eat out tonight. You better reflect on your actions." "Such a sweet boy. Easton really is a good son," my mother-in-law cooed. With that, my husband left with my mother-in-law. In that moment, the shock of not being able to get my necklace back, along with the anger towards my husband for siding with her without even listening to me, made my frustrations explode. I decided to take revenge. That same day, I spoke with my father-in-law again. He apologized and listened carefully to my story, and I found out that he was also fed up with my mother-in-law's outrageous behavior. I decided to set up a plan. The next time my mother-in-law came over, she was flaunting the necklace, enjoying my reaction. I deliberately told her, "I forgot to buy something. Could you look after the house for a bit?" Normally, she would have snapped back with something like, "How dare you ask me to do something?" But this time she smiled sweetly and said, "Of course, why don't you take your time? You're always busy with housework." "Thank you. I'll be back in about 30 minutes, I replied. I left her alone at home and went out alone, my heart pounding. If I could get definitive evidence, I could finally take my revenge. But part of me also hoped that But I asked mother-in-law to watch the house because I forgot to buy something, I replied. "No more excuses. Be careful next time," he snapped, sounding more arrogant than ever, emboldened by his mother's presence. I sighed, looking at the pot that had only bits of vegetables left. I wasn't just angry. I felt disgusted by my husband, who didn't even think to leave any food for me. I realized there was no chance these two would ever reflect on their actions. After cleaning up dinner, I checked on the trap I had set up earlier. As expected, it had been triggered. My husband noticed and smirked, looking uglier than ever with his triumphant smile, just like my mother-in-law when she flaunted the necklace she had taken from me. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. The day of revenge came sooner than I expected. On my husband's day off, he and my mother-in-law called me to the living room. Seeing the two of them in high spirits, I sat across from them, pretending to know nothing. "Hey, why didn't you tell us?" my husband began. "Tell you what?" I asked, confused. "About the bank book. If you had that much money, you could have told us. Now you can show filial piety to Mom too," he replied. "I don't understand what you're talking about," I said, trying to keep my composure. "Don't play dumb. We're talking about your bank book," he insisted. "Oh," I managed to say, without showing any signs of panic. I must have seemed a bit suspicious, but the two of them eagerly laid out estimate papers for a new single-family house on the table. We bought a new two-family house. Mom and Dad, you and me, we're all going to live there, my husband announced. What do you mean? I asked, still pretending not to understand. You're slow to catch on, aren't you? My mother-in-law chimed in. We're saying we made a contract to buy the house using the money from your bank book, my husband explained. Buying it all at once means no interest, and it's smoother, right? Hold on, why are you moving forward with this without me? I questioned. Lillian, you really do hate me, don't you? My mother-in-law interrupted. That's why you're saying you don't want to live together. Hey, cut it out. You're being rude to Mom, my husband defended her. Who's being rude? It's far more disrespectful for you two to use my money without my permission, I shot back. Huh, people with bad upbringing really have bad mouths, my mother-in-law muttered. I struggled to suppress a laugh at their absurdity. A part of me was amazed at how terrible they had become, but my resolve for revenge remained firm, because they had made me this way. We found a perfect newly built property for sale and already signed the contract, my husband continued. No matter what you say, it's too late now. Besides, we're married, so there's no reason for you to complain about using our shared property. That's right, my mother-in-law added. It's worse to hide it. By the way, did you check the name on the bank book? I asked, a smirk forming on my lips. They both froze at my words. Seeing their reaction, I couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. They hurriedly looked at the name on the bank book, then stared at me with pale faces. What the hell is this? My husband stammered. It's exactly what you're seeing, I replied. Why is it someone else's name? I never said it was my bank book, I continued. So, what does that mean? You stole Dad's bank book, you thief. Who's the thief here? You went out of your way to pry open a locked drawer and took it, I retorted. But you were hiding it so carefully, my mother-in-law argued. Oh, so it's okay to steal things your daughter-in-law treasures? I guess that's how you were raised, I said sarcastically. Don't talk back to Mom, my husband warned. You should watch your mouth. Do you know why father-in-law gave this to me? Why? They both asked, confused. I heard from father-in-law about why mother-in-law has been spending so much money lately. You two took a vacation while taking time off from work, didn't you? It seems you told the company whatever you wanted as an excuse, like having a fever or visiting your parents, I revealed. I received a call from the department head, and he was stunned when I explained everything. Realizing their predicament, my husband and mother-in-law exchanged worried glances, but I had no intention of forgetting them. During the silence, the doorbell rang. When I answered it, my father-in-law was at the door. I led him into the living room, and my mother-in-law and husband gasped in surprise. Why are you here? I asked my father-in-law. I've told you many times not to cause trouble for Lillian. But my mother-in-law started. There are no excuses, my father-in-law interrupted. When will you two start behaving properly? Dad, my husband began. Don't call her she, my father-in-law cut him off. You're old enough to know better. It's embarrassing. If you can't value your wife, what's the point of calling her she? But she has treasured me too, my husband argued. Are you saying you're not being valued? My father-in-law asked. I've worked hard to provide for you so you wouldn't face financial troubles. I thought I saved enough to let you live comfortably. And now you want me to overlook your mistreatment of your wife? Throughout the exchange, my father-in-law kept responding firmly to their excuses until they were left speechless. He delivered the final blow. Regarding the bank book, I told Lillian to keep it as compensation for the trouble you've caused. Despite my warnings, you've stolen money and even bought a house. What more do you want? Unable to respond, my mother-in-law was taken home by my father-in-law. Before they left, I pointed at her neck and retrieved my lost necklace. Seeing what had happened, my husband realized his mistake and forced his mother to apologize in the now quiet living room. I then handed him the divorce papers. Oh, why? He asked, looking confused. What do you mean why? After all this, you still think we can stay married? But you're only mad at Mom, I replied. I'm disgusted with both of you, I said firmly. If you refuse to divorce, we'll take this to court. We'll have to reveal everything you've done, including the theft from the bank book. What? No, you're lying, my husband protested. It's all on camera, I replied. You can clearly see you two breaking into the lock and taking the bank book. It's shocking how you accuse others of theft after committing such an act. What kind of upbringing did you have? But why? You're being so cruel, he said. Everything will be made public, I continued. You'll have to pay back the $300K you stole from your father's money, plus compensation and court fees. What will you do about that? Seeing the gravity of the situation, my husband's defiance crumbled. I handed him the divorce papers and finally became a free woman. I accepted the $300K from my father-in-law as compensation for the trouble caused by my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law. Under my father-in-law's supervision, they had to work hard to repay him a total of 60 million yen. When my ex-husband emailed me from a free email address asking for reconciliation, I ignored and deleted it. Now, free from my stress, my health has improved, and I'm enjoying my time with the money from my father-in-law.